Thank you. Good morning. I think the issue, the conference this time has to do with what are we doing with biodiversity. We have individual researches, we have focuses. What I have observed is that each and everything that we are doing has a biodiversity focus. But most times, we just go ahead and do it without reference to how is this biodiversity sustained. And it makes a whole lot of difference. On a daily basis, we are living on biodiversity. I have this idea to refresh our minds about what we are really talking about, biodiversity. That's a plate of, could have been breakfast, could have been lunch, or even dinner. And I will want you to spend your time to see if you can count the number of different biodiversity interests in that plate. And this is what you are destroying every day. On that plate alone, I can count 11. On that alone. You can also count and confirm. There are some plates that the seen and unseen put together in one plate consumed by one person could be more than 30 at any one time. Talk less of drugs. But these are things that we are paying very little attention to in terms of conservation, except when we are interested in using them as experimental specimens, as alligators for analysis that we have just been told, or for agricultural development, like my colleague said earlier. But we are slowly and ignorantly destroying even those things that are making our life important. You can imagine what will happen if we had no biodiversity. Then this conference would be null and void. This is a forest habitat. And you see the kind of things that are present in the forest. Some of them to you may not be important. Some of them to you, if you look critically, may be the solution to problems you have been carrying around for decades. On the left are mushrooms growing on a rock inside the forest. The interest is that a herbalist who led me to this told me he uses this mushroom to cure rashes. That is what he uses. But the funny thing is, you look at the picture, you could see that this seems to be a family of a father, a mother with children, and so on. But that's nature for us. But give an oil company a right to enter this forest, this picture will disappear in seconds. On the left is this very unique gecko. It might be the only place you'll find it in the whole world. And the same herbalist told me that he uses the mussels from this gecko to treat hypertension. Just cook it and eat. That is biodiversity. But we are destroying it. I may not necessarily follow this outline because of time, but I'm going to try as much as possible to see if we can challenge ourselves that we are not doing enough in the area of biodiversity conservation. There are challenges, there are problems, there are efforts, there are attempts, but I don't think that we are doing enough. Because slowly and gradually, the world is changing, and these things are disappearing. It's not only in Africa, it's here in the US. You see a situation where they destroyed a variety of plants by way of clearing the forest to develop only one. And that one may not have the capacity to sustain the changes in climate. So the natural ones that would have adjusted and given us the basis for survival tomorrow, we have destroyed. I want to put this across to all of us before I continue. You can only use what you have saved and conserved. You cannot use what you have lost. You cannot conserve what you have lost. If you spend your money, you cannot save it. But if you spend your money, you can save it. The same thing is applicable to biodiversity. We can use it when we conserve it, but we'll definitely not be able to conserve it when we have destroyed it. Biodiversity, I'm not going to waste time because I know that most of us already know the definitions. It's a global issue. It's a challenge that we have been facing year in, year out. And that is why Omics has chosen as one of its focus in conferences, biodiversity. But unfortunately, not many people are very keen and interested in biodiversity conservation. Rather, they spend their times, they put their concentration in exploitation of biodiversity for economic purposes, negatively so. The importance of biodiversity are there. They provide goods directly or indirectly. They provide services and functions, and they improve our quality of life. Think of what will happen if we had to depend on artificial oxygen alone in this room. And plants are the major natural sources of oxygen. The forest has the cleanest atmosphere, especially when it is not exposed to pollution. But there are challenges in conservation, which I think is what should bother all of us at this conference. Poaching for economic reasons, animals are being shot. You watch news sometimes. People kill elephants just to remove a small tusk. And what do they use it for? Make a few dollars, and that's all. They have forgotten what that elephant is doing in the environment. Plants are cut. Plants that have been around for hundreds of years are cut. The ones that are just a few months old are cut and used for timber. Of course, in rural areas, firewood is the only source of energy for warming the environment, for preparing foods and so on and all that. Overfishing using mosquito nets. I had to put this because they go to fish. There are some regulations about fishing that you should use a certain net size so that the younger ones will continue to survive and grow for you to be able to fish. But you go to some areas, they are using very tiny fishing nets that removes even the micro animals from the water. That's what I mean by mosquito nets to fish. Of course, we mentioned land take for industrial purposes, construction of roads, for building of estates, airports, and so on. When I was landing in the night and I saw the expanse of the airport, and I said to myself, in fact, I came in the night and I saw the expanse of land with lights glittering far, miles and miles and miles. And something told me biodiversity has been lost in this development. I'm not saying we should not develop, but we should develop cautiously. Most cases, the oil companies, incidentally, what we observe is that God has a way, nature has a way of bending and mixing together what is on the ground that is useful to what is on top that is also very useful. You have oil spotted in areas of high biodiversity value. And so when the oil companies move in, all they do is just to destroy the place, because what is important to them is the one that is below the ground, as if they were the ones that put it there. These are examples of what we are doing to nature. And I said, these trees were habitats for a lot of things, birds, climbing animals, and so on, monkeys. The moment you strip the forest bare of this, you have also either driven the animals away, or you have done one thing or the other to nature. But we should not allow this to continue to happen uncontrolled. You would think that it is only in Africa or in India, but it's everywhere. Even if it were only in Africa, even if it was only in Africa, what nature has put in Africa is useful to America. What nature has put in America is also useful to India, and so on and so forth. So if you destroy or allow the one in Africa to be destroyed, you say, oh, that is their problem. No, it is a global issue, and we need to look at it as a people. When I mean as a people, as human beings. These are the biggest culprits, the oil companies. See the pretensions. On the left, they are clearing forests, making pathways, go to a large area and destroy. You could see the beauty behind what they are doing. Where you have red earth, where the trucks are, used to be like the areas adjoining it. And what they have had to destroy to create this path can never be quantified. And then on the left, the same group of people are pretending to be planting ornamental flowers on paved roads. What hypocrisy. This is another factor, a wellhead that has been abandoned for years. And before they could get to this point, they had destroyed so much of land, so much of forest, and so on. So I am looking at this kind of conference that we are holding this time around as a level ground for us to say to ourselves, what is happening outside there is not good enough. If we are talking about biodiversity, we should be very much concerned about conservation. And conservation should not be an individual affair. Because even biodiversity, the forest, for instance, has direct relationship with climate change. We all know that. I don't want to take so much of our time. The world has realized this early, since 1992, when we had the first summit in Rio de Janeiro. They've had what we call the Earth Summit. But these were either directly channeled towards climate change without much reference to biodiversity conservation. And I think it is time for us to shout that just like we have climate change summit, we should also have biodiversity summit. They should be. The United Nations should be interested. Biodiversity will have a seat in their agenda, so that as they spend money to fight ISIS, because this biodiversity degradation is a worse ISIS than the one we are fighting currently. This one knows no bounds. If it starts, we are all finished. They should spend money to conserve biodiversity. We are today at a point where just about 40% of life has yet been discovered and described. What we are seeing is just about 40%. 60% is yet undiscovered. But unfortunately, by the action of human beings, we are destroying this 60% at top speed. And even the 40% that we already know, we are also destroying. This destruction seems to be unstoppable because Kingsley Akpabio is doing his own in his own lab, in his own village. My brother is doing his own in his own lab in Georgia. And my sister here is doing her own somewhere else. Nobody is talking about it as it affects everybody. And the time is now for us to do it. There are very many areas where biodiversity is being destroyed by industry, by government, even by society, even by the natives, the ordinary people. So my focus in my work currently is trying to set up what we all call the Community Biodiversity Action Plan, letting the people be aware of the danger of destroying their own forest, their own system, and building up for posterity. What we are using today was put here for us, not by us, and we don't have a right to destroy it for the next generation. They should also inherit something and keep it for generations unborn. Fundamentally, climate change is an issue globally because of its relationship with everyday life. Tornadoes, things are happening, earthquakes, and so on and so forth. But let us not lose sight of the fact that biodiversity also has the same status with climate change, and we should work towards that. What we have not done to help biodiversity, we have not established sufficient linkages, we have not defined and connect economic and social environmental progress. In fact, we have allowed our governments to deceive us. They are deceiving us. They take the oil, they destroy the environment, they spend the oil to enjoy themselves, the product of the oil to enjoy themselves. But you and I are the ones that are suffering, and our generations to come. We need to refocus on current efforts in conserving biodiversity and energy production. We should be able to do a linkage between the green economy and sustainable development. We are not saying you cannot use biodiversity. What we are saying is use it sustainably. That's the point, sustainably. Use it sustainably. For instance, Africa is identified as one country that has the greatest challenge, but it has only 1% pool of scientists who are interested in biodiversity. I don't know what, please, if I make reference to India, it's because my friend here is an Indian, and I know that India and Africa share some ecological things together, all right? So, but I don't know what is happening in other places. But the hindsight tells me that the issue is exactly the same everywhere. What we need to do is to tackle this challenge by encouraging our educational system from the primary level to the university to include in their curriculum studies in biodiversity, issues in biodiversity. I want to share this joke. I just came out from a workshop, and a lady said her cousins visited her from some civilized environment. I call it civilized environment, where all you have is fancy cars, permanent light. If you find plants, they're artificial, and so on and so forth. And what they see on television, what do you call it now? They see pictures of animals on television. And so when they came, visited her in the village, they saw goats. And the little children started shouting, "Auntie, come and see horse." They call goats horse because they don't have any, focused information about this. And of course, the problem, like I said, is what everybody needs to look at. I'll just run through this. This is a field that has been destroyed. This used to be a very thick forest where the natives reported they used to have elephants, monkeys, and some cats around. But the oil company moved in, cleared the place, abandoned it. All the animals are out, and then they leave it to become a grassland. And this part of the forest that they had defoliated. And these are some beautiful biodiversity specimens that we picked during our field work. I've been warned that I have less than 5 minutes, so I have to run. And of course, this is a larva. We're yet trying to define, to properly describe this. But what happened, it attacked Terminalia. There's this plant called Terminalia ivorensis. When it came, it was like a swarm of bees attacked only Terminalia and completely defoliated it. In fact, it made the plants look as if they were dead until they regenerated again. And these things just went off like that. And of course, you can see on the picture here some very serious issues of biodiversity destruction in the name of development. We had a case study of one of the local communities back in Nigeria, sponsored in the Niger Delta, sponsored by Shell. And then we had some of the information that I'm giving to you came from there. Now, what should we do? There are policies that have been on, global policies, the convention since 1992. There are many of them. I can leave this so that we can pick them up later. And these are still some of the specimens that we got in the forest. You can see a snake that has been roasted for food down there. And all these have been pushed and removed. And some of them are young and have not even lived up to the age of production. My recommendations that oil companies should be made to pay for biodiversity. We should go for global summit, like I've already said, and items like biodiversity should be part of the agenda of the United Nations. My recommendations continue. I think I can say thank you very much.